Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Please kindly turn toward the asan, the seat over here. And Bhadranath Swami is going to say a few words about our special guest tonight, Devamrita Swami.
Let's garland Maharaj first. Jai Maharaj. Hare Krishna. I don't want to take away much time from Maharaj's time for speaking. If I were to give a full history and appreciation of Maharaj's devotional resume, we wouldn't have enough time. We'd be done. It wouldn't be time for the lecture. But I should say that Maharaj was living in New York City. He graduated from Yale University, is one of its best and brightest, joined the Hare Krishna movement, and has traveled all over the world. He was one of the openers, our secret agent, 108, behind the Iron Curtain. Yeah, during the oppressive communists, he was flying in, KGB was coming in the front door, he was going out the back door. It's true, I'm not making it up. I mean, it's amazing what he has done. He's a member of ISKCON, so a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, an early member of our society. He is a member of ISKCON's governing body, which oversees our worldwide operations. So he's one of those members of that governing body. Maharaj has developed many innovative outreach programs, counseling programs in New Zealand and Australia, where he's oversees their activities there with some other devotees, but he's got very innovative programs that have been modeled and tested there and applied throughout ISKCON. And there was something else that just slipped my mind. But anyway, that gives you a flavor. And many of the points that I will make in a talk, I have shamelessly stolen from Devamrita Maharaj's insights. So it's very insightful. Just open your ears, listen very nicely, because we have with us today a very senior, saintly, powerful devotee of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Oh, well, you can say what do I say about the book? I've read this book. I keep a couple copies. Hold it up. It is called Hiding in Unnatural Happiness? Yeah. And I don't want to say more than that. Maharaj will say what he wants to say. But I always keep a couple copies of this book in my car, because when people are interested in spiritual life, or they're a little curious, or what is going on in this world, this book is a great introduction and first starter. And I read it myself. I read it every now and then. Every time I read it, I get something new out of it. It's a simple, short. Get a copy today on sale. No. They have a whole box. No, that's not the way you say it. They only have one box. And it's true. So get your copy now. No, you'll be glad you did. Keep it in your pocket. But I don't want to say more. Thank you, Maharaj, for coming. He travels all over the world. He travels anyway. Oh, it sounds very exciting to travel in an area. They asked anyway. I don't want to take up too much time. But we're very kind that he's come to this corner of Southern California. It's not an easy thing. He said, okay, I'm going to come. So, Hare Krishna, open your ears and become enlightened.
I thank His Holiness Bhadranath Maharaj for his kind words. Let me begin by saying that, without a doubt, my real education only began upon contacting Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, and his followers. Now you might wonder, how could that be? Are you just saying that because it's the religious thing to say? Are you saying that because you belong to this bhakti tradition and therefore you want everyone to know that your tradition is the best? No. I would have to confess that the first time I saw Krishna Bhaktas on television was April, May 1972. My roommate and I were studying for our finals at Yale, and we would sometimes turn on the television just to get relief from all the high-pressure stress. I was writing a senior paper in history. He was preparing for his physics finals. So he turned on the TV looking for a break. And we wouldn't watch television in the ordinary way because we were so-called elitist students. We watched television with the volume turned all the way down, and then we would speculate on what was happening. In this way, we differentiated ourselves from the masses. Suddenly on the TV screen appeared these very strange-looking persons wearing strange attire. Men with shaved heads, wearing robes. Ladies who were almost completely covered. So I remember saying to my roommate, "Who are these aliens? Turn up the volume. I can't figure this out. We got to listen." So we heard their presentation. I remember some of the faces I saw later to become inspiring associates. I remember Jayadwaita Maharaj, then a brahmachari, his beaming face. So they explained their lifestyle, the bhakti yoga precepts, rising early, controlled senses. I heard that, and I remember to this day exactly what my response was. And I'm telling you this just so you can understand the potency of the Harekrishna mantra and Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. When I heard them explain the bhakti lifestyle, I turned to my roommate and said, "These people are fools." They kept using the word ananda, bliss, ananda. So I learned that very quickly. I said, "They talk about ananda. We'll invite them to one of our parties. We'll show them what ananda is." That was early May of 72. 6 months later, I was living in the brahmachari ashram. What happened? I contacted Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada's clarity of presentation so astonished me, especially because during my university years, I had tried to study Bhagavad Gita as an official course. I made the ultimate sacrifice for a student. I took a course in Hinduism that met at 8 a.m. My fellow students and I had a rule that no matter what the course is, if it's before 11 o'clock, we don't take it. So I was eager to understand Bhagavad Gita. I heard it was the topmost wisdom book, a book that revealed the spiritual potency behind the universe. So I went to class at 8 a.m. That means getting up at 7:30, which our typical student schedule went from sleeping at 3:30 a.m., getting up at 10:30. So I made the ultimate sacrifice to study Bhagavad Gita. I reported to class. The professor, world-famous professor, I forget his name, but I was speaking to some professors from universities in the Los Angeles area, and they all recognized who the professors, they recognized his name. So he gave an overview of the course, and then the first assignment. He said, I want you to read a section of the Upanishads and write an essay on what you think it means. I thought to myself, I woke up 7:30 in the morning, so early, just to go to a class where the professor tells me to speculate? I can do that any time of the day or night. So I decided, I'm not taking this course. I will find the reading list for the course and buy all the books at the university bookshop and read the books on my own. I'll teach myself. So I purchased a copy of Bhagavad Gita, an attempt, shall we say, at Bhagavad Gita by a famous professor. I took it to my room and I started leafing through it very quickly. The verses were in the front, his commentary was in the back. I just looked at the commentary and I saw something that for some reason totally repulsed me. Now I would say this is the activity of the supersoul in the heart. It was not due to my diluted intelligence. The author had written in his version of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is a concept meant to satisfy both the intellectuals and the sentimentalists. I took the book and I threw it against the wall. Not knowing anything about Krishna, but I reacted through the typical student consciousness of the time, a time in which all the students were radicals and anti-imperialism, anti-Vietnam War. And so I threw the book against the wall and said, just see how the British colonizers have ruined the people of India's book. One day, I will find a real translation of Bhagavad Gita. So, I forgot about it until a month after graduation. I was walking in New York. In fact, I had just come out of the metro, the subway, and I saw a person dressed in saffron having books in his hand. So I went up to him because I was looking for what is the meaning of life. I was receiving all kinds of corporate offers. Come for this interview, AT&T, General Motors, this, that, the other. But I thought, I have to sort myself out now, otherwise I could be washed away until I'm 65. So I've got to do a timeout. I've got to figure out what's going on. So I approached this devotee. I said, what do you have there? And he showed me his wares, his transcendental wares. He had books by Srila Prabhupada. And one of them was called The Transcendental Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. I have to confess that I didn't pay for the book because I was meeting, well, this is karmic past. I was meeting a significant other, and being a pseudo-sophisticated New Yorker, for those of you from India, it'll sound strange, but I thought, let her pay for the book. So she didn't mind paying for the book. She, oh, he's always doing exciting, adventurous things. So I started reading the book, and by page 2, I had collapsed in the chair. Srila Prabhupada was saying that why should you misuse your human form of life to get the same taste that's available in any species of life. I was shocked. Who is this who's talking like this? Wasting your human form of life, and how the taste of material gratification is the same no matter what body you have? I had never heard such knowledge before. So I promised myself, tomorrow I'm going to find a bookshop that has more books by this Swami whose name I can't pronounce. And I did that. I went to Greenwich Village, which is like the bohemian hip section of Manhattan, New York City. And I found a bookshop and purchased Bhagavad Gita as it is, and some other small books. But I was very leery of associating with devotees because I thought they're all hippies. They have no practical solution for the world. They're dreamers. Oh, but these books are so wonderful. So I read these books at home 4 hours a day for 6 months straight. Never came to a temple. Never went to a bhakti vriksha or bhakti chakra or meeting. Nothing. I would get my books from BBT mail order. So I thought that's the way it's going to be. I'll just read these books and leave it at that. But one day, I got a letter from the BBT mail order in Los Angeles that Srimad Bhagavatam in its first deluxe edition, because before that there were simply the volumes that Srila Prabhupada had brought over from India. Very rudimentary printing. But now this was going to be the first printing done in the West. Beautiful covers, everything. A first-class presentation. So the letter was saying, if you want to order advanced copies, the first canto, you can do it now. I had read all my books 2 and 3 times. Bhagavad Gita, Nectar, Devotion, Sri Upanishad, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. I said to myself, I can't wait 2 weeks for the Srimad Bhagavatam to come in the mail. I have to go find a devotee. I have to take that risk. I knew that in the biggest bus station in New York City, called Port Authority, devotees were often there. At any moment, 5,000 persons are rushing through this bus terminal. And devotees would valiantly try to stop this one, try to stop that one. I had seen them. I avoided them, of course. I just kept my reading of Prabhupada's books to myself. But this time I was going to take a chance. So I went to the bus terminal, got on the subway, took the 15-minute ride on the train to the bus terminal, and I saw a devotee in the middle of the floor amidst thousands of persons racing here and there. It was 4:30 in the evening, peak time, rush hour. So I said, let me see if she stops me. I walked past her once, walked past her twice. She didn't say anything. I said, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to approach her. There was this devotee wearing a sari. Back then, the ladies, if they were married, they wore yellow saris. If they were unmarried, they wore pink saris. And whether married or not, they all wore gray hoodies. Very colorful. So I walked up to her and asked what I thought was a routine question. I walked up to her and said, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? Her mouth dropped, but she was a good Sankirtan devotee, a good book distributor. She immediately caught herself and said, how do you know about that? I said, I'm not here to answer any questions. I just want to know, do you have the book? Really? No, tell me. You must know something about what we're trying to do. I said, I really am not interested in what you're trying to do. I just want the literature. But she wouldn't let me get away. And then she embarked upon a whole description of how they're trying to get a new building in New York. And yes, and that I could probably help. I said, what do you mean help? You probably got money. I've never given anyone a penny in charity in my life, and I'm not about to start now. No, but you understand. You've been reading the books. You understand the great work that we're doing. And then she said, let me tell you about the new building. There's going to be a theater. There's going to be a restaurant. There's going to be a library. There'll be ashrams. You'll love it. I had to admit, yeah, that sounds very nice. I could go to the library. I could go to the theater. I mean, it's New York City, another cultural venue. Sure. A restaurant. Yeah, I can bring my friends there. She wanted a contribution, a donation. And I was insistent. I wasn't going to give her a penny, even though I appreciated what she was trying to do. I told her, look, I thought I'd compromise. I'll leave you some money in my will. She told me, rightly so, look, how old are you? 21? You don't even have a will. Of course I didn't have a will. So this went on for about 20 minutes. And finally, I said, look, even if I wanted to give you money, it's all at my father's house. Then she astonished me. Really? Let's go! Oh, no. How do I get rid of this lady? I can't be seen in public with someone looking that strange, wearing, these, what I now know are saris, of course, and with a white mark on the forehead, and my neighbors will think it's some kind of hippie girl or something. My reputation in the neighborhood will be ruined. She was so insistent. She escorted me to the subway, got on the train with me, and we went uptown in New York, 90th Street, Central Park West. And I said, well, I'm not taking her up to the 14th floor to where my father lived. I told her, you stay down on the sidewalk. I'm not having my family see you. So I went up, and I came down with a check. I'll translate the amount of the check into today's value of the dollar, so you just get the full impact. Yeah. I came down with a check for $10,000. I handed her the check. Do you know what she did? She looked at it and thanked me profusely, and then said, "But I'd like 20,000." I was just astonished. And then she began to preach to me, everything belongs to Krishna. You've read so many books, you know that. That's why I'm making such a bold request, because you know. It was hard for me to duck that one. So I went upstairs on the elevator again, came down, tore up the first check, and gave her a check for $20,000. I thought, that's the end of that. 2 weeks later, I was going through Port Authority to visit some friends at Yale, so I had to take the bus to New Haven, Connecticut. And there they were. Not just her, but a team of devotees. They saw me from way across this huge terminal. There he is! I said, oh no! so I tried to run and get away. But they surrounded me. And again, she started her presentation. You've already given so much. Certainly you could give more. You're actually a devotee. You don't understand that yet, but you're actually a devotee. So, somehow or other, I relented, and again I was escorted on the train up to my father's apartment, and I came down with a check for another $20,000. So, no. Actually, it was all my money. So, I gave her the second check for $20,000, and then she said, "You know, you don't understand yet, but you are now a life member. You can go to any of our temples in the world and stay." I said, "Well, that's the first practical thing I've heard. Yes, Paris, London, Rome. Yeah, I don't plan to do a bit of traveling." "Oh, that's okay. And then, as a clincher, she told me, "Look, you've given all this money, $40,000. You might as well come to the temple and see what's going on and where your money went to." I said, "Indeed." So that's how I first came to the temple in Brooklyn, in New York City, the famous Henry Street Temple. So, I haven't told you all the story, but I'm just thinking, when I was telling this to one of my sannyasi godbrothers, a Swami, His Holiness Bhakti True Swami, he looked at me and said, "Now I know that anyone can become a devotee." It was not my intent. But the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is so captivating. We're not talking about Hindu tradition. We are talking about the perfection of knowledge. Just consider. As a competent person, you want to be known as futuristic, in that you're concerned about the future of your life. Ideally, you would like the decisions you make to be future-proof, right? That's the sign of someone who's really savvy and expert. Your occupation is future-proof. Your home, in terms of an investment, is future-proof. That's when you're sitting pretty and doing everything expertly. But how truly futuristic and future-proof are we in terms of our most precious asset? In terms of our body and our spiritual existence within the body. It's amazing how we'll be so conscious of the future in terms of investments, in terms of careers, in terms of education. But when it comes to what happens when this body is finished, we don't take that so seriously at all. In fact, we don't think about it. I remember, just an example of being futuristic. My mother, when I was 7 years old, she started then. She would always ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I didn't know what to say at 7 years old. But I had seen pictures of chemical engineers who wore hard hats, and I thought those hard hats, they looked very interesting. So I said, "I want to be a chemical engineer." Immediately, she would race to the children's bookshop and come back with a book, "Your Child's Future as a Chemical Engineer." So then, a few years later, the same question. The uncles and my mother would ask me, "Do you still want to be a chemical engineer? You're 9 years old now. Do you have any other ideas?" And I was reading the New York Times. I like to read the employment section of the New York Times, and especially about investment bankers and investment analysts. Sounded very intriguing. Portfolio specialist. So I told my mother, "I want to be an investment analyst." Immediately to the children's bookshop she'd go and come back with a book, "Your Future as an Investment Analyst." So this is being concerned about the future. And she was always very diligent to remind me, your choices now will influence the future. Watch out who you associate with. She would never let me go near basketball courts. So, why is it when it comes to our most important decision for the future, what my next body will be, we go blank? Have you noticed that? We go totally blank. It's not a priority. What do you mean what my next body will be? If you're from India, you simply say, I'll do my duty, and then that's all that's necessary. The God will take care of me. I'll just do my duty. If you're from California, then you say, I just trust in the universe. What will be, will be. But Bhakti Yoga is very precise about your future-proofing your existence. How to get the best possible body in your next life. Now, in a normal human society, materialism, as we were discussing this morning, begins with understanding karma. The actions I do now will influence my future. So let me act in the best way now so I get the best pleasures in the future. This is the path of karma. That is considered, from the Vedic point of view, to be actual materialism. That you want the best comforts in the future, so therefore you act in an appropriate way now. But as you know, those whom we may call materialists now have no conception of what actions will lead to the best outcomes in a future existence. There's no idea of that. Therefore, actually to call someone a materialist today is complimentary. It means you understand that if you want to enjoy in the next life, you should do certain things now so you can avoid suffering and have the best kind of prosperity. But you don't see any materialists like that. What you see is actually a dense cloud blinding everyone. Have you ever driven on a highway and a car coming from the other direction has its headlights on, high beam, and you're blinded, you can't see. So just visualize billions of people blinded, covered by fog, and they don't consider, what will my future existence be? It's not considered relevant. When you applied for college, online application, did you see a question, what will your next body be? No, it's considered irrelevant. And even you yourself would probably agree that doesn't make any difference. It's all about my academic qualifications. But in a real human civilization, the concern is about your genuine future. So why don't we feel that? Why don't we feel concern about what will my next body be? It's because this cloud of, in Sanskrit, avidya, nescience, ignorance, is covering us. And that covering is because of the kind of societies we live in, which blunt and deaden the human potential. So we're paying a price for living in these kind of societies. The price we're paying is ignorance. We're covered by a dense cloud. And we think we're making progress. We think our life's improving. But when it comes to the most essential concerns in life, we're not worried. We don't even think about it. So sometimes persons will just say, why should I be so interested in what my next life will be. Let it come. There may be a next life. There may not be. This thought drives so much of what we know as hedonism. In short, get it while you can. Enjoy your senses. Have feverish economic growth. And then after, who knows? But don't let life pass you by. My father, unlike my mother, was very religious. My father was quite the opposite. He would chastise me as a young teenager. Son, you've got to understand, life is not a spectator sport. You've got to get into it. Just don't watch everyone and try to understand. You've got to get into the flow of things. You're 14. There's a lot of excitement out there. There's a lot of pleasures out there. Just get into it. And then he ended up by saying, you know, I see there are a lot of nice-looking 14-year-old girls in this neighborhood. You should feel free to experience what life has to offer. I replied, Dad, doesn't the Bible say that's sinful? He said, son, you've been listening to your mother too much. Then, in the same conversation, he said, and by the way, about your 12-year-old sister, if you ever see any boy walking her home from school, you immediately tell me, I'll take action. I said, wait a minute now. This doesn't mathematically add up. If all the boys are, supposed to be uncontrolled and do what they like, and all the girls are supposed to be chaste and untouched, this is not going to work out. So anyway, his concern about the future was simply that you have the best experiences now and don't worry about anything beyond that. That view is quite prevalent these days. People sometimes respond to us that, why are you so concerned about your next body, your next life? By that concern, you're ruining the present potential of enjoyment. Indeed, at my alma mater right now, the most popular course in Yale's history is a course on happiness and well-being. 1 out of every 4 students is taking that course. Why is the university offering that course? Because they did an analysis of their student body and found that over the course of their undergraduate years, half of the students have asked for mental counseling and therapy. Half. So the psychology department decided to offer this course on happiness. 1/4 of the student body signed up. They couldn't give the course in a typical classroom. They couldn't give it in a typical lecture hall. They had to hold the course in a concert auditorium for thousands of persons. So I tuned in to parts of this course. And an eminent psychologist, done so much research. One of the things she was teaching the students was the art of savoring. And that this technique of savoring would help you to enjoy every moment more. Savoring, as psychologists define it, means when you're having an enjoyable moment, you step out of it. You step out of it and just think, this is really good. I mean, this is amazing. And supposedly, by doing that, the enjoyment is heightened. They also advise you take a picture of the situation so you can remember it later. And after the situation is over, immediately find a friend and tell the friend all about how you enjoyed, and that magnifies the enjoyment. Write about it in your diary, and in that way, you can, by these labors, you'll increase the pleasure. Now, they also advise you, don't do certain things. And one of those things you shouldn't do when you're savoring is think that the pleasure is going to end. Because that will spoil everything. No, yeah, this is Yale University, most popular course, for the supposedly the brightest persons in the USA. And don't think while you're having pleasure that it's going to end. Therefore, you can understand why persons are hesitant to confront the future of their life beyond old age and death. What does Krishna say so prominently in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Dehino sminyata dehe kumaram yovanam jara. The child has a future. The adult has a future. The old person has a future. And the person dying also has a future. So to actually future-proof your existence, you need to be on top of the situation of what will your next body be. But then persons say, I can't worry about that. It's too esoteric. I don't see my past life. I can't see my future life. So in other words, let me just become absorbed in economic activities, material prosperity, and I've done my duty. Leave it at that. But this is not actually how people live. They are very futuristic, right? What occupation should I study for? I'm at the university. I'm studying to be a this or that. Could it be that by the time I graduate, that occupation is going to be outmoded and old-fashioned? Yes, this is great anxiety. Parents are concerned with the future of their children, study in school, keep good company. I think everyone here has some kind of insurance, yes? Isn't that futuristic? You're paying money to the insurance company so that no future event will totally knock out your financial worth. Isn't that futuristic? But when it comes to Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita about what is your future after giving up this body, we become dull. No, that is not a practical concern. I'm a practical person living in the real world. I have insurance. I want my children to go to a good university. What my next body will be, that's not practical. This is our problem. The Krishna conscious society is actually addressing this cloud of ignorance. And it's hard work. Because what I call the mass consensual trance is so intense that it's hard for people to think in this way. But that message of Bhagavad Gita will cut through this fog. As Krishna told Arjuna, by studying Bhagavad Gita, you're worshiping him with your intelligence. And in the first canto of Bhagavatam, Arjuna, who's bewildered because Krishna is no longer physically present, he says, now I'm remembering Krishna's instructions. And because of that remembrance, all the accumulated contaminations in my mind are disappearing. And these instructions of Krishna are good for all times and all places. So this is the perfection of yoga. This is the top rung of the yoga ladder. Far beyond even legitimate materialism. Remember? Legitimate materialism What is good karma? What is bad karma? What we have today is not actually materialism. From the Vedic or the yogic point of view, what we have today does not fit in the category of human life, I'm sorry to tell you. It's just act with your senses and don't worry about what your real future will be. Meanwhile, as we said, you're being futuristic in so many ways. Insurance, education, investments. Especially our devoted families from India are always very careful to leave a good inheritance for the children. That's being futuristic. That's very good. That's being very responsible. But we need to consider what is our most pressing need for being futuristic and future-proofing our existence. Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita take you far beyond good karma and bad karma. In fact, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you do things his way and you've got no karma problems anymore. That's Krishna's magnanimous offer. You follow his instructions and your life becomes karma-free. Otherwise, you're always harassed by time bringing you good reactions and bad reactions. We may say, look, it's not fair. How can I suffer when I don't remember what I did to bring on this suffering? Critics of karma say like that. It's not fair. You're suffering. You're an apparently innocent person. And karma says that this present suffering is due to what you did in the past life. But you don't remember what you did in the past life. So therefore the whole system's not fair. But who says that the karma system depends on your memory? You may remember, you may not remember, but reactions are there. Who says that the purpose of the illusory energy is to educate you? No, the purpose of the illusory energy is to blind you. But then, you can get knowledge of how your situation is the way it is by hearing from Krishna, hearing from the Shastra, hearing from the spiritual literature, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. That's better than a fragile, limited memory. But we're so proud. If I don't remember it, it's not worth knowing about. Just see the bias. So many things about your life you don't remember. How many of you can remember past the age of 3 years old? Very few of you. Yet we make memory the litmus test. If I don't remember the actions I did that lead to certain reactions, it's not important. It's mythology. So I hope you now can begin to see the dense cloud of nescience, the fog of avidya, or ignorance, profound lack of knowledge, that is enshrouding human society in spite of what we may call progress. So I'm explaining these things to you so you can see that you're part of, by coming here, you're part of a most extraordinary venture to uplift human society. A venture that is based on the most comprehensive spiritual knowledge and the most precise spiritual methodology. But it may seem a little strange, as it did to me at first, because it's outside of the cloud. It's outside the fog. But if we allow ourselves to enter into the world of bhakti knowledge, if we allowed ourselves to hear the harekrishna mantra, we'll notice that fog of nescience dissipating. And that'll be the best thing for our individual life, for our families, present and future. So please try to understand the extraordinary contribution that's being offered by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, that's being offered by Srila Prabhupada, Krishna's ambassador, sent here to bring Krishna consciousness all over the West, and also what's being offered by our staff here, our bhakti practitioners, our devotees. Please, don't do what I did in the beginning. I don't want to associate with these persons. What are they doing for the world? As if I, at that time, was doing anything for the world. Fortunately, by reading the books, I became more spiritually educated. And in that way, I could see what is the real solution for all the world's problems. Maybe there's some questions. Yes. You're right. She never gave me any books. And after 45 years, when I see her, I say, can you give me the money back now? I could really use it. Yeah, I never got the books. So I indeed ultimately had to get them from Los Angeles. Yes. One of them was my god sister Devi Shakti Mataji, who still to this day distributes books at the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. Yes. Savoring. Got to get the terminology right. That how I should teach persons how to savor. You see, by engaging your senses in Krishna's service, you are generating the best present for yourself as well as the best future. We're so slow in our grasp of what is ultimate reality that we are fearful. If I try for Krishna, the spiritual pleasure, I could be missing out on some good material prosperity right now. Often in India, this point will come up. That, Swamiji, isn't the spiritual life meant for when you're 60 and 70? But when you are 20, 30, 40, that is the time for economic development. This point comes up all the time. In other words, we recognize that spiritual development is necessary, but it's something you do in your very old age. Your youth should be used for generating material prosperity. And of course, if you're Californian, you want to make sure that at every possible moment you're being stimulated, entertained, gratified. So it takes education for us to understand, spiritual education, for us to understand that the bhakti lifestyle, the bhakti knowledge is not jeopardizing our present. Because you may acknowledge, okay, it sounds like the best future, getting the best body, having the best next life, but What about now? You see, there's so much, can you see that? There's so much pressure in the Western world. Now, what are you doing now? There was a very popular bumper sticker in the USA some years ago. Simply said, "Are we having fun yet?" That's the sutra. In other words, if a moment goes by and you're not having fun, you've got a problem. Everything is evaluated in terms of the moment. This is not human civilization, though. So, no matter where you are from, USA, India, we have to understand that the best thing we can do at this moment and for the future is to follow Krishna's instructions. So we're working hard to educate ourselves and the public in this ultimate reality. The ultimate reality for now as well as for the future. One last question way in the back. Oh yes. Please.
So, you put in referencing your best body for your next lifetime. I haven't done a ton of reading of this organization, but it's been with me. Self-Innovation Fellowship. When you say your next life, are you saying your next, one thing I always think about the material world, if I was born into relatively more intensity, right, I wasn't born as a silver hair and a slum of vanilla. So are you saying that we want the next circumstance for our next body? Or be a bricklayer in Dhaka in a slum of, I'm gonna, but, so what exactly are you meaning by that?
Not simply your circumstances of wealth, education, beauty, and aristocracy, but the very mechanism, the vehicle, the body itself. In other words, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, according to your consciousness at the time of giving up this present body, you get another body that matches your profile, so to speak. And it may not be a human body. Someone with the eyes of knowledge will see how consciousness, even to a minute degree, is present in all life forms. Trees, plants, animals. But the human body is unique because it gives you the gift of advanced consciousness. But the laws of nature, as described in the yoga text, explain that if you misuse the human gift of advanced consciousness, why should nature give you a human body again? Better you get something that more matches your profile. And your profile means your level of consciousness and your activities. So I recommend you please take a look at Bhagavad Gita, and this is all explained very profoundly.
What about that moment at the last time of the death? You were saying that this is something we keep hearing, that what your consciousness was at the time of death as opposed to what you did the whole life.
Your consciousness at that last moment is the culmination of your consciousness throughout your life. Snowballs, the snowball effect. So it's not that, generally speaking, suddenly at the last moment you can make a swerve. No, it's a cumulative effect that adds up. So therefore, it's best to start your spiritual practices at the youngest age possible. That's the best thing. My regret is, why did I start when I was 21 or 22? Why couldn't I have started earlier? I think your Bhakti Narayana Maharaj started when he was 17 or 18?
17 and a half.
17 and a half.
And look where I am and look where you are. You use your time wisely.
4 years before I started, he started. Just think of the service to Krishna he's done in just those 4 years. conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam is Komara Acharet Pragya Dharma Bhagavatana Durlabha Manasam Janma Tarapya Durlabha Margata. From the very beginning of life, start your bhakti practice. Even though this human body is temporary, it has value, artha, because with it, you can achieve the ultimate goal of life. From the very beginning of life, or from whatever age you become aware. So I became aware of the need at the age of 21, or Maharaj at the age of 17 and a half. So some become aware of this even younger. You don't have to experience the world and become polluted. You can better understand the world, not through experience, but through transcendental knowledge. But that is a subject for another lecture. Thank you very much.
Marge, I have one more question.
Okay.
I promise I'll let you wrap up. You said that is a question for another time.
Yeah.
I shamelessly ask, when will you visit us again? Just keep us on your radar, Marge, that's all.
It's always a pleasure coming to SanDiego Temple. Thank you very much. All right, we'll have some kirtan. Thank you very much. Harekrishna.